Brenda CVitan, thank you for joining us and for sharing what you can of your experiences in the gift and the art of caregiving.
Well, hi everybody, and this is hi. Um, I don't know if I said it really that fast, like yes, because talking to a big crowd, one on one, I could talk to anybody and help you out every day of the week. But the big crowd and over Zoom, it's kind of different for me. So I'm just going to say it was a hospice CNA for close to 20 years, and I've taken care of probably thousands of people, I imagine, in that amount of time. And I loved it. The only reason I left is because they closed the hospice inpatient care center where I worked. If that hadn't happened, I'd probably still be there until I couldn't walk anymore, taking care of patients. So this is a little different for me. I'm here at the retreat center, but Ron does utilize me to go out in the community sometimes or call a family and do a Zoom. So I did bring a few toys in, but first of all, I want to my big, I would teach the CNAs when they would come in and the caregivers. And the first thing I want to say is it's safety for yourself and for your loved one. Um, if you don't think you can do it on your own, moving somebody or just call and we can figure it out. um but it's if you get run down and you're doing things quick and your body mechanics are not are huge. If you hurt your back, there's not going to be there might not be anybody to help take care of your loved one. So that's a top one. Safety for you know your family member that you're caregiving for. So I do have some, you know, a bag of tricks, things that make it a little easier for moving folks. And I'm huge about gait belts. But before I get started in showing you some things, I'd like you to, if anybody has any questions, we can sidetrack because it's about what you need, not what I might want to show you something, but if you want to know how to do something else, please just ask. Because, I'm here. If you don't want to ask in a big meeting like this, you certainly can contact Deb and she can give you my number and you can ask me in private over a phone call, and we can just talk. And so now I'm going to go to my gait belt. Gait belt is the first thing, and these are great tools, and I think everybody should have them on. If they're walking and unstable, it's just a safety precaution. Our gait belts have handles on them where when you're walking, instead of holding the trousers of somebody behind or their arm, because if you pull somebody's arm, sometimes it's really fragile. But the gait belts are more secure. Even if your loved one is a lot bigger than you and you can't hold them up with that gait belt, you can ease them to the floor where they're not going to fall and smash their head or get hurt really bad. You're going to do everything you can to ease them to the floor. And it's a good tool, and it just goes right around the waist like this, and it has the handles here. And our gait belts are the best because Ron only gets the best for our folks. um, Getting somebody to a standing position can be hard because you immediately want to go up under somebody's arm, which a lot of people, their shoulders hurt, their arms hurt. We have what is called a transfer sling. Again, it has two little handles on the side like this, and it's pretty basic. If somebody's sitting in the chair or sitting in bed, it goes around their waist or their back like so. And you have 2 points here. So you're going to pull on the handles and it's going to pull them to a standing position. instead of pulling on their arms. And this is a great, and Ron brought these into the care center where I worked, and we use these all the time, and they're wonderful. Standing, pivoting, sometimes when the legs aren't working great or much at all, but they can still, you get them to a standing position, but getting them from one chair to another chair is really difficult. They're doing those little steps. Maybe they can't even lift their foot. We have a pivot disc. It has a little handle here, which if somebody is sitting in a chair, I put it right under their feet. I would step on this handle with my foot, and I would use the transfer sling to lift them up. Now they're standing on the pivot disc, and it's literally a turn, and then you can lower them with that transfer sling right into the chair. My knees would be against their knees, and I'm doing everything with, conscious of my back, my body mechanics, wide feet, just because if you get hurt, it's just, and it can happen in a flash, and the slightest little movement. So every time I would take care of somebody, I'm always thinking, how am I going to do this the safest way for both of us? So anybody have any questions? No? Oh, Michael, shoot.
So Michael Hodgkins was good enough to provide us with both the gait belt and the transfer. My wife is rather petite, and the gait belt actually slides right off of her because her waist is so narrow. She's down to about 95 pounds. So is it one size fits all, or are they actually smaller ones?
The ones that we have, check the tag on it, Michael, because some of them are small, medium, and large.
Okay.
And if the small one, and it should be marked right on the back here on the tag.
Okay. Right.
If it is a small one, they do have other gait belts that it's just like the wide, like what you'd wear in the summertime, the waffle, the cotton belts that men wear a lot.
Okay.
It's similar to that. You can get them in, and we may even have one. So you can certainly email me and I can send you. It's not as nice as this, but it is still a gait belt. And that's what everybody in the world uses, other than CCALS, who uses these nice gait belts.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Anybody else? Yes, Dawn.
Those look great, because when my husband was actually in the hospital, they gave me that cotton one that you're talking about that everyone uses, and it doesn't stay on. It's just I don't use it because obviously to wrap it around him, and it's really long, but that other one looks really good. Should I just send a text maybe to Jason or to someone to get that other one that you have in that pivot? Or send an email? Yeah, either of those.
Sure.
Do you think I should reach out to him? Because that looks so much easier. The other one I have, it has a clip on.
Who's the care liaison that goes out to see you?
Jason. He's the one to bring us supplies.
Jason brings you the supplies. You can reach out to Jason.
Okay. Yeah, those look, I didn't know there was other ones. So that looks, to get my husband out of bed is quite a struggle for me.
Or I could send you directly the belt that we have.
If yeah, I mean, my husband, I don't know if what size you do have. My husband's like a 5'8", so I don't know if there's a size for that, but either way.
Okay.
Yeah, can send you a note.
So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions before I move on? All right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. I'm sorry. Sorry, Courtney.
Oh, for this, the transfer sling, can you use that if so my father, oftentimes he actually has a lot of movement in his legs, but it's his arm. So if he falls on the ground, I kind of just have to get him up a little bit to get him nailing, and then he can kind of get up.
Yes.
Can you use the transfer sling for that?
I don't see why not.
Would
I
that help?
mean,
Okay.
I know what you're saying. If he's on the ground, you want to just kind of get him up. Because
I definitely scoop under his arms right now. That's
right.
like,
And you're
but
not, and this is really good. It has like, what goes underneath carpet. So it sticks to, it kind of will stay on the clothing. It doesn't slide
okay.
clothing. And this could get him to that kneeling position, because you could put it under his chest and move him, if
Okay.
he's fallen. Do you have
Okay.
a gait
Thank you.
belt? Courtney, do you have a gait belt for your dad?
I don't, but I'm thinking I should probably have one.
I'll tell you, a lot of people don't like the gait belts. I'm a huge advocate for the gait belts. And these ones are these are really great because they have the handles all the way around. And I mean,
Okay.
this would help you if your father had, to get him even up a little bit.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. This is really helpful.
anybody else? No? Okay. So we have the pivot disc and the gait belt and the transfer sling. Now, I'm going to go to we have adaptive. I mean, we don't always have this, but this is out there if nobody has used it, because here at the retreat center, guests have come and they've never used the adaptive silverware. And because I have a set here at the retreat center. So when they are here, they try it. It's a wider set handle. And these, you can bend this pretty easy. So it's just easier for, people to use. So these are out. I don't know where everybody is at, but these are also really great tools. We also have, I mean, if you don't want that, we have these little spongy things, and like pens will go into it. You can slide, anything into it, and they can just use it. You can put a piece of silverware in it, the pen, and they're good. Because I broke something. Sometimes if your loved one is downstairs and you're running around and you're the only one home and you're doing laundry or you're doing something, we have cordless doorbells, which have worked really well, because you can have a part in your pocket, the part that rings, and they have the doorbell by their chair that they're sitting in. And even if you're outside, they can ring it, within a certain range, but in the house, those work great. The cordless doorbells, because you could be anywhere upstairs. There comes a time where sometimes people aren't able to hit the doorbell or ring a bell, whatever you have worked out at home. We have this is called an easy call. And it is literally the slightest little tap. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to plug it in because it's hugely loud. But this works. And this actually works too if anybody ever went into the hospital and they don't have this. Where I worked, this end plugged into our call light system. So they would hit this and it would call us through our call light system. So some nursing homes, respite places, hospitals, this will work for them if they don't have something like this. And the smaller, facilities don't have these kind of things. That's another great tool. And I worked under a lot of great hospice nurses. And the very first hospice nurse, people think the lemon glycerin are wonderful if you have somebody has a dry mouth, and some people swear by it, but the first hospice nurse I worked under said absolutely not. If you think of lemon is drying. It works it gets you kind of moving, but it's drying. All you need are these little toothettes, some water. A lot of times I would soak this in some water. I would squeeze it out, of course, with a gloved hand, and I would just swab their mouths. It gets saliva out but you don't want to put the dry one in. Some people do like the dry, but I would wet it. And then down the road, if their mouth is really dry, which is not always the case, but we also have, well, hang on a sec. Biotine is a great tool. We use this a lot when I was doing care, and I would wet the tooth. That's because, you know, a lot of our ALS folks can't get a lot of fluid in their mouth. They're going to choke. This would be wet. I'd squeeze out the moisture. I'd put some biotine, small bit on it, around it, and then I would swab the mouth. And this worked great for keeping the mouth lubricated, but not too much. But good mouth care is necessary. But any questions so far? Okay. I have for the gentleman, Martha told me to bring this. I figured everybody would know about a urinal, but our urinals, again, like everything Ron gets us, CCALS, it's the top of the line urinal for men. It comes to you with the handle off. It's inside. This comes off. It's an anti-spill urinal. And trust me, it's amazing. When you're working in any kind of healthcare, this is really great because it'll sit on the table. You're not having to put it like this that will tip over and spill all over. It sits like this, and it's an anti-spill. This obviously is in there. And then you can either take this off to empty it, or it has a little, and it actually has a red cap that you could put on that's a lock. So if you had like little ones around that, you know, think this is really nifty, you could put the red cap like a pill bottle. It won't come off unless you push it in and stuff. But the kids would learn fast enough.
Does that handle glow in the dark?
It does. The handle glows in the dark, and anything that's green glows in the dark. It's really, this is a great tool. Trying to think what else. Call light. Positioning is huge. Positioning.
Excuse me for a moment.
Yes, sir.
You showed the urinal for men, but what about urinals for women?
The urinals for women, they do have them. I have not had much luck with a urinal for women. I really haven't. There is a new product out that, well, I don't know how new it is. It's called PureWick. And it is almost like a suction machine. And you can look at, I don't have one in my office. It's almost like a suction machine. It has a wand that it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. You put the wand in the underpants. When your loved one has to urinate, you turn on the machine, which is like a suction machine. It starts sucking, and then they urinate on that wand. It's like half of it is a cotton wand, cotton, so it absorbs. Some people have had wonderful luck using those. And when I send those out to folks, I always send like a bag of paper chucks, because the learning curve on that, you don't want to be sitting and hoping that this is going to do the trick. So I always say, put the paper chuck underneath just in case, because I've never used a PureWick with any of my clients that I've cared for, because it wasn't out when I was working, hands-on. But it is great. And I understand that a lot of hospitals are using them now.
Oh, I see. Well, I was just wondering, there's the good old-fashioned bedpan that
Yes.
hospitals used to use. Is that more successful for women?
Bedpans are great, but I will tell you, no longer than, and this is going to sound odd, no longer than 10 minutes. And 10 minutes is tops on a bedpan for, urinating or having a bowel movement. I've seen, and people say, well, that my husband or my wife or they want to stay on it. After 10 minutes, you're going to start to have, it almost looks like the old-fashioned hickeys on the coccyx area. I have seen a bruise the shape of a bedpan on somebody's backside. So it's 10 minutes tops with the bedpan. Some people like the bedpan. I had no problem with using a bedpan at all. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Brent, can you talk for a minute? Because I have somebody walking up to the doorway and I don't know who it is. Excuse me.
I think one of the things that comes to mind, with the connections over the gatherings when people are sharing about their life with ALS, there's this kind of general sense that people have about how noble it is to power through and to, not need help or to not need more information or support. And I think that, and also the resistance to having these devices in the house. My dad, the urinal changed my dad's life because he had such a hard time getting out of bed. And it was so hard for him in the middle of the night to demand so much from my mom. And once he had the urinal and he still had the dexterity in his hands to be able to use it, and it made a huge difference for him. He was very reluctant and hesitant to move to a wheelchair, even the transfer chair. And so when you feel the resistance of a loved one not wanting to use adaptive devices, but to power through it, or you as a caregiver not wanting to ask for assistance because you think you should be able to do things, it's one of the layers of suffering that I think if we are gentle with ourselves, we don't have to suffer. We can ask for help sooner. And if we allow those assistive devices and equipment, durable medical equipment in sooner rather than later, oftentimes a crisis can be avoided or averted. So those are the only two things that come to mind in Brenda number one's absence.
Sorry about that. I'm at the retreat center right now, and that was just an unexpected. Usually I'm not even here at this time. So that was an unexpected visitor. So I heard part of what Brenda was saying, and a lot of people, when they come to the retreat center, they might be using a transport wheelchair. And I always have I have like a little scooter here just in case, because we're right near the bike path. And a lot of folks have used it while they've been here, and they're still walking. They're just using a transport chair every once in a while, but they'll use the scooter to go down the bike path. And I've had like 3 or 4 people go, "This is really great." I was able to do things, they were able to walk with their family down the path, and they've wanted one. So it's just kind of sometimes it's, trying it out for a couple of days or even more than a couple of days. I've taken care of people and they just want to use the sit to stand. They don't want to go to that Hoyer, and the Hoyer it looks scary, but it isn't. And, if you ever need to use them down the road, or if somebody's using it and not so sure, please, you can call me at any time, because it is a great piece of equipment. And again, it's safety for your loved one and for yourself. And it's a wonderful piece of equipment. So, but the folks that have used my scooter, they always want, they want to take it home. And I'm like, well, we'll call and see if we have one in our warehouse for you. But, so I'm almost through all of positioning is huge.
Brenda.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Edwina. I'm sorry, I'm connected with a phone.
That's okay.
Could you talk a little bit about this transition point from sit to stand to the Hoyer, when your loved one with ALS is very reluctant to make the transition? What are the things that that need to, where I would need to say, okay, you may be reluctant, but this is what we have to do? Because so what I'm wondering about is, Bruce's legs are weakening, but I'm still able to use the sit to stand.
Mm-hmm.
He can only hold on with one hand, and I have to position that hand. The other hand, I can no longer even position; it doesn't stay.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me a little nervous.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard one because I have another person that I had the same question put out to us today. And my thought, where I always go to safety. The sit to stand is a tool, and a lot of places don't, a lot of facilities, hospitals don't use sit to stands. They might in rehab, I'm not sure. But the sit to stand is for a short period of time, hospitals in, rehab or like nursing homes, or where I worked at a hospice inpatient unit, we didn't have that unless Ron brought it in. And it's really hard. And I'm going to say, if you're supposed to have your hands, and I don't know how to your husband, I would say it's for my sake. If something happens to me, I'm not going to be here to help you. And who's going to help? If you put it on yourself, sometimes your loved ones will do it, not because they want to, just to, for your safety, they may do it. And, it's hard for me to say, what I would do in my house might be different than somebody would do in theirs. Because the sit to stands are great, but you really need to have your legs. And a lot of people push that envelope, and they really shouldn't. And it is scary. I'm so sorry. I wish I was better help.
Well, so the question really is, if he still has his legs, he can, with the sling, he's hanging on the sit to stand. It seems fairly stable, but he only has, let's say, 2/3 of one arm, or maybe half of one arm. Is that okay? What are the points where you say, wait a minute, if you don't have 2 strong arms to hold on, you can no longer use it. Or if you don't have 1 strong arm, or if you have no arms, that's my question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, I just want to respond because we hear this a lot, and people are so reluctant. I think it's mentally, emotionally, whatever. The Hoyer lift seems like this whole other level, a whole other realm. But the sit to stand, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Who's on the phone? Is it? Oh,
It's Irina.
Alina. No, not Irina. No, Alina. Okay. Anyway, okay. This is Martha.
No, it is. It's like Irina.
Oh, it's a
Irina
different
Rosenblum.
Irina. Okay, I know another Irina. Excuse me. So anyway, I actually sent a link on a website. I had to look it up so that I had something concrete to share with a family, because I know the criteria for like Martha Miller and the DME coordinator. And what we know about the sit to stand is you have to have some some legs, and you said he does, but core strength, and you have to have some hand grip and some arm ability. So to have not have the use of one, I mean, if you there is a link that you can go to, that you just write in what is the criteria, or what is safe to use a sit to stand or something like that, and it pops up this whole printout of you should not use a sit to stand. Yeah, if you don't have the use of your hands, for example. But I know people have muddled through with it, but really, to the point, it's a psychological thing and emotional, I imagine, to switch to a Hoyer lift. But I think I've known people who, once they do it, they're like, oh, I should have done this sooner. And again, for the caregiver, yeah, safety. And so yeah, just Google it. I could send you the link if I have your email, but if you want to put it in the chat, but however you want to do it. But that's all I got. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but it is an issue. I feel you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I'm not able to put anything in the chat because I am on the phone while driving.
That's what I thought you said. Yeah.
I'll reach out to Brenda. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll reach out to Brenda.
Very good. Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay.
See ya. Thank
This
you.
is may I comment too? This is Susanna. I'm
Sure.
actually talking through. I'm watching right now, but I didn't put voice there for a moment because I also was driving. Irina, what I'm hearing from you is, and I hear this very often, that sometimes the person with the illness isn't ready for something, but the caregiver or family needs is the one who needs it. So sometimes what can really help is to say, I know you aren't ready, or you're not there yet, but I need this for me. Could we try this for me this time? Because sometimes when we focus on the person's disability or progression of disease, that can feel very overwhelming, as all of you have said so beautifully. That transition is a big one. What I'm hearing is that you're acknowledging what Brenda said about safety, yours and his. And so to put it on you and say, could you help me out and try the Hoyer this time? I need that security for me because I'm struggling with this. I know you're not struggling with it yet, but I am. And could we just try this out? And so by shifting sometimes that language from you need this to I need this, it can take that sense of two things happen. One is you're asking for help, which not very often, people with ALS are often the ones who are asking for help. So to be asked to help the caregiver can sometimes be a real opportunity. And it also helps with that sense of holding on that, okay, this time I can help you out and I can help you be safe. And this is my way of taking care of you. Mm-hmm. And that shift in language sometimes can be helpful, not always, but and then the last thing is to say, could we give it a try? Let's see what happens by giving it a try. So sometimes we do these, just like all of you have said with equipment, to try it out for a period of time and see how it goes. And let's just give it a try this time and see, or let's start training for when things get harder while you can still do these other things, because I'm going to need that help. Some of that language can really also be helpful to bridge and help people through the transitions. So I would just offer some of those things to try.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce who that was, Bren?
No, you're better off introducing Dr. Susanna. I'm not.
That was our new medical director, Dr. Susanna Mikowski. So that was.
Hi, everybody.
Glad you're here.
This is my second week with CCALS, although I've worked side by side with Ron for over 20 years as well, since the early, for 20 years or so.
Glad you're on board.
And me. She worked with me as well.
Yes, I can't forget that. I worked with Brenda before I worked with Ron, and I learned a lot from her. One of the things I want to share is CNAs, I call them the angels of caregiving and hospice. Just like Brenda said, most of them are so humble, don't like to be put on the spotlight. So this takes a lot of courage. And they are the experts in being present and in doing the most difficult of the work, which extends to the primary caregivers. So the wisdom that Brenda brings to the table, and right now the courage to be on stage. This is pretty unique, so I just want to name that. And she really is a gem. I remember working together in the hospice house and just being in awe. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, we'll go back. I thought of a couple of things, and I'm huge at this because I also caregive outside of CCALS. I have elderly parents and I'm there most days. You have to be able to accept help from family and friends. And I can say that because I'm really bad at it. I don't. I think I can do everything myself. And before you know it, you're in a corner, or I'm in a bathroom, just like crying and screaming, and it's, everything just gets up. And that's okay once in a while to just go someplace and just yell and scream, because it's not great. But if somebody asks if you need anything, take them up on it. 100% take them up on it. If you just need an hour to go for a walk, or if you need to just go down the street and get a cup of coffee, or if somebody asks, can I bring you over something? And, everybody's typical response is, no, we're good. We're all set. Say, I really haven't had a home baked coffee cake, and so, just like little things like that. But people aren't going to ask you if they don't want to help you. They won't show up for you, and they won't offer. So when somebody offers, say, yeah, I just need 10 minutes to go outside, or whatever it might be. But take them up on it, because there's a lot of kind people out there, and they do want to help, and sometimes they just don't know how. And cookies are always good too. But all right, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Positioning. Now, I don't know where everybody is on their journey, but positioning is huge for your loved one's skin integrity. And even if they're in a permobile, or if they're sitting in their recliner, or if they're sitting in a transport wheelchair, whatever it might be, if you and I can get up and we can move around, and our skin is going to be fine, and we eat enough to, we're getting enough protein and nourishment in our body, so our skin is pretty good. And but somebody that's sitting in a chair, and a lot of our ALS folks aren't eating like we eat, and so their nourishment is down, so their skin integrity is gonna follow suit. So a lot of people don't like to be positioned way on their side, but I tell people, even just a little, if you have a towel or something, something smooth. Towel, the terry cloth can be annoying, but if you just put it just a little bit underneath their cheek, one of their cheeks, or a little bit. Now, it changed my position enough to where I can stay like that for a couple of hours. And then again, you only want to be like that for a few hours, and maybe on the other cheek. And I would tell folks, the ones that like to be flat, sitting flat or laying down flat, it's like every other, you're on your side, you're on your back, you're on your other side. Because skin breakdown can happen really fast, and it can be really horrible, and we just don't want to go there. So positioning is a good thing. I know there's a lot of Roho cushions and a lot of different cushions out there, but positioning is number one in it. It just is for their skin. And when I would bathe somebody, if they had any red spots, we used either A&D or zinc oxide, the Desitin like kids have, the white stuff, and just massage it in. It's just a little barrier cream. It's not going to hurt anything, and it's great for the skin. They have all expensive things, but A&D or the Bombex, the zinc, the white stuff is great. Shoulder, any kind of bony prominence are great. I went and visited somebody, and his wife had asked me, because he's always looking down because his the muscles in his neck aren't, and they didn't know. So this is the only kind of neck brace that we carry. And Martha Miller, if you're on, jump on. I think I'm going to say the wrong name. I think it's called an optimal neck brace. And
That's
it
right.
has different little hoses here that you can add to make it larger. It pops open and you can change these little tubes to make it. And I know when I brought it to that gentleman, he loved it because
You change the height of how high the neck goes up.
yeah. And he loved it because it hurts. Your neck will hurt if it's if it's not held up. And this is really great. This is great. So this is the only one that we carry. There is a multitude of different types of neck braces out there. Ron, I know, has gone through a couple of different styles, and he likes this one. I like this one myself. But it's like trial and error. If
That one can also be used in the shower.
In the shower too. If your loved one doesn't like this, there are others that you can, find online and order. Like I said, but this is pretty nifty. So, any other questions? No? Okay. I have one more. If your loved one is in bed and you want to, I don't know, they're spending a lot of time in bed, say over 3 hours or 4 hours, and you want to position them and you want to make it easy on yourself. You don't have a hospital bed, or you can use what they call a draw sheet. All a draw sheet is a top sheet, and you fold it in half. If you start at your shoulders and just however long it goes down. We would use a twin sheet. We would fold it in half, and that's what we use. If you had two people, it's really easy because the two of you, instead of moving your loved one around on either side of the bed, we roll it up. We use that to move. We're not dragging the person. We're lifting them up and moving them. Dragging is going to shear the skin, and you're going to end up with a sore. So try not to drag. Now they have come out with what they call a slide sheet. Really cool. It came around. We ordered them right at the end of my CNA career. Slide sheet, the ones that we ordered for us, they look like big garbage bags, and they were amazing. You could move the biggest person by yourself in the bed with just this little, it wasn't little, it was pretty long. But those were disposable. Now they have larger, and they call them positioning sheets. And it's just a big square. It's like a draw sheet, but it's also a slide sheet. And the person will slide on it easy. And when you're by yourself, you don't have the option, like I did, to lift somebody and not to slide them. So the slide sheets are a great tool, but you have to make sure you don't leave it under the person, because they are slick. If you have somebody on their side and they're, they might roll back in the slide sheets, you'd be amazed at what people can do. So the slide sheet comes off, but it's very easy to put back on underneath the person when they're in the bed. So, any questions? Yes, Dawn.
I have a question about that slide sheet.
Yes.
Because like my husband in bed, he, he's having a really hard time turning over.
Yeah.
Like, would that be something that if he had it under him for a little bit to like when he's sleeping, because he keeps waking up? Or I know you just said not to leave it there, but is that because he could slide off my bed or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I was just trying, he's struggling with that,
He's trying.
like, yeah.
Do you have the you have the side rail, like.
I do, yeah, we do have a side rail on the bed, so like he can, his one hand isn't great and his other one's starting not to be good, so he'll like try and like put his arm through it and then like pull himself, and then sometimes he still has some good core strength, so he'll like put his feet underneath the rollator and then pull himself up. He's trying not to wake me up every night like to go to the bathroom right now. So that's it, but I just didn't know if that, like, that's why I thought that belt that you said, what, at least in the morning, I could pull him up easier than trying to lean on his legs and pull his arm.
The
And,
gait belt or the transfer sling would be great, getting him to a seated position in bed.
yeah.
Martha, jump on again, and you're kind of off a little bit, but there, or anybody that knows, it's a bed pull, and I never used it. That's why I'm asking Martha or somebody to jump on. It looks like.
I might have bought that on Amazon. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. I bought something that's supposed to attach to the bottom of the bed, and it looks like a ladder.
Yes, with handles.
It's a bed ladder.
Yeah, we haven't figured that one out yet, but I did order that on Amazon at some point.
Okay, because that, I know people have used that.
Okay, all right. Okay, maybe we'll try it again. Every day's a new thing, so.
Yeah, it's just trial and error.
Yeah, okay.
Trial and error.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Even too, sometimes the material that your sheets are made out of, like silk, is easier for some people. Some people don't like that. Out here in Colorado, a lot of people have the flannel sheets. They're basically impossible to get up on.
Oh yeah, yeah. My husband would be too hot in those, but yeah, we have like cotton sheets, but I could see the silk ones being a little slippery. But I will try that again, I guess, the ladder too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Does anybody else have any questions? No. All right, Bren, can you think of something else?
Yeah, the word in my head is fall. The fall risk, part of the safety. And Irina, I was glad you asked the question about resistance to transitioning to a higher lift. We just had a family 2 weeks ago who took a fall and was resistant to getting in the Hoyer lift. And I think the question is, how can we have these conversations before the fall and the crisis that comes with a fall? Because then there can be broken bones, there can be head injury, and even greater care and demand. So I don't know if any of you have stories, because part of the gift of getting together in these gatherings is that we share stories with each other. And so I don't know if any of you have a story or how you've done something that's made things better for you, that you feel comfortable sharing with the group, but that'd be welcome.
I have something. Can you hear me?
Yes. Glad you're here.
So my husband has a trach and a feeding tube and can't move at all. So we are way past all these aids, but we did use everything you mentioned at different points. And I remember specifically as he was transitioning from being able to get up to not being able to get up, and I had to go and help him get up to go to the bathroom, having this conversation and saying, you know what? Every time that you try to do it and you get stuck or fall, it takes me half an hour to fix you up and to get him out from the floor. And it's really difficult. It's easier if it's only a few minutes, if you just tell me. And we kind of made a pact that, yes, don't get up without calling me, because then it only takes me a few minutes and it's much easier for me. And I think that avoided him falling, because he was at the point where he fell a few times. Didn't get too hurt, but it was very scary. So I think it was like what you said, I put it on myself. I said, I really need to be able, I work from home, so be able to come here for a couple of minutes, help you pee, and then go back, as opposed to emergency, you fell. Now, how do I get you up?
Mhm.
So
Beautiful. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Brenda, the other thing I'm thinking of is I hate to say that I use a scare tactic, but honestly, I think I do with my families because I've seen enough of my families
Mhm.
have a fall and end up in rehab, and then they're even more miserable than they were before. Obviously, it's hard for someone to wrap their brain around what that environment might even be like.
Mhm.
But nowadays, with the lack of caregivers, it's even worse than it was when I started 12 years ago. And I kind of joke a little bit so that they'll hear me, and I don't even know if they really do, but that's something that I always try to say is that you do not want to go into rehab. And if it works, it works. And I don't care that I'm scaring my families because it's best for them, at least in my opinion. So anyway, just my 2 cents.
No, that's good. Trisha, you wanted to say something.
For my younger brother, I actually got him to use diapers at night to save him getting up during the night. And during the day, he used a urinal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a trade-off that we had because he was the third one in my family to have ALS. So I tried to figure out what I was going to use to minimize what I had to do because he was a foot taller than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to come up with a solution because I had nobody else helping me with him. So
Right.
that was the trade-off I did.
And that's good because you were able to get a night's sleep. And
A little bit.
right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trisha. Anybody else?
Hi, guys.
Hey, Chris.
I just think, listening to everybody, there's a common sort of theme here that, our patients obviously don't like change, which is very understandable. And our caregivers are in danger of getting injured or getting hurt. And if they get hurt, that means the patient could very likely get hurt. So I kind of second what Erin said. And I think it gets to a point where you have to say, this is about us, not just about you. So as a team, we have to come up with what's going to work best for us. And if it means starting to use the Hoyer lift or starting to use something else that's going to be safe for all of us, then that's what we need to do. And it's a very gentle dance to have, but it's a very important one to have. And sometimes it's better off coming from someone else than the family member, like one of our liaisons or somebody like an OT or PT that's outside of the family. But this is a very, very common thread. It happens to mostly all of our families. My biggest takeaway for everybody is my motto is staying ahead of the change. How can we stay ahead of the change? Get prepared for what lies ahead. If that means getting, a sit-to-stand or a Hoyer lift or a gait belt or a transfer board, whatever it is, get it in the house, have it, so that when the time comes and you need it, it's there.
Right.
And you can introduce it very, very gently and easily into the routine between the caregiver and the patient.
Thanks, Chris.
Tagging on to that too, sometimes just having a piece of equipment in the house can change someone's perspective on it, even if it takes a little while for that to happen. And also kind of echoing what Chris said, if it's a close friend or someone who can come in and have that conversation with, your loved one, then it's not fully on you. And especially if it's someone that they respect and they value in their life, even if you just invite them over and they witness what you have to do to transfer, then they might not even have any idea, and then they can have their own conversation as well too. separate from, you know, your want and desire for that change.
Thanks, Luke. Anyone else? No. All right, I'm looking around to see if there was anything that I missed. But there's not. So I know there's a bunch more that I could tell you, or there's probably a bunch more questions that you all have. And it's a lot. But when questions come up, I'm Brenda at CCALS. Shoot me an email, phone number, call the main office, and if you need to talk to me, they'll give you my number. And I'm here at the retreat center, so I don't mind chatting and doing a FaceTime or whatever with anybody. It's just it's hard. And I did think of one thing, and this was really hard, and a lot of folks, not a lot, but some ALS folks will get this. And I don't know what it's called, because maybe if Susanna's still on, sometimes people will either laugh a lot at inappropriate times, or they'll cry. And then when they cry, they're getting short of breath. And when this happened where I work, they would always call me, because for whatever, I stayed calm. I'd stay calm. I would look at my patients straight in the face, and we would get through it. And I would just tell them, breathe with me. You're all right. Just keep on reassuring they're all right. Because you get into that weird hypervent, they're crying so much and they don't know, or laughing so much and they don't know, and they laugh and then they cry. And, I would be able to get him down and okay. Whereas, the other staff there would be like, I don't know how you do it. Because it gets really scary. But as long as you stay calm, because if they're crying, they're getting air in. If they're making a sound, they're getting air in. They're just, it has some, I don't know, you just talk them through it, stay calm and breathe with them. I always tell them, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And they would listen to me and they would do it. And it would just bring them down. So that was one thing I thought of, because that was always a hard one for folks. Yeah.
Brenda, this is Susanna.
Yep.
So that it's a symptom called, it has none of these names are easy, right? This is called pseudobulbar affect disorder. So basically what it is, and about 10% of people with ALS can develop this. It's where one's affect, which is how we express ourselves, sort of mood appears, isn't related to how someone emotionally is feeling. So there's a disconnect between what our outward emotion looks like and how we're actually feeling. And what can happen is people can cry uncontrollably, or laugh uncontrollably, or have other expressions like that can appear out like being startled, or come out of the blue, or if they're nervous or anything like that, it can just show up. So if you do notice this, I think that intervention that you talked about, being present and recognizing, what I've seen in the past is certainly asking, making sure that we're not brushing aside a linked emotion. Are you sad? Are you worried? Making sure that we're not missing those things. But if they're saying, no, I don't know why I'm crying, or I don't know, if they're able to communicate and share that this is not related to their emotion, it's useful to tell your physicians now, because there are new remedies that can help treat that, and quite effectively, actually. But in the interim, breathing with and naming that this is another symptom that can be addressed. And just like you said, Brenda, is that kind of emotion can stir up a lot in not only the person living with it, but those who love that person or are caring for that person. And so by honoring what's coming up for you and naming it first for yourself, this is another symptom, and we can get through this. It doesn't necessarily mean they're in distress. By bringing yourself down, you can help bring the patient down through it, and then call the doctor and say, I think there's this condition. And if you write down, we can send it, I can send the information to you guys, pseudobulbar affect disorder, if you notice that incongruent emotion, affect with how someone's feeling.
To tag on to that too, that should be something that should come up during a multidisciplinary ALS clinic visit with your neurologist, your nurse practitioner, and as Susanna said, there are medications that can, such as Nudexa, that can help with that with those symptoms. And
But make sure
I
to
think
bring
Brenda,
it up,
your advice
because
was spot
it's
on.
not
So
always
thank you.
asked.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
you
Yeah, and
definitely
make sure to
could
bring it up if it's not
Sometimes
asked.
some neurologists,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, Susanna and Chris. All right.
I want to be sure if there's anybody else who's here with a kind of a pressing concern or question that you're in your own circumstances of caregiving right now that's up for you that you'd like to share or ask questions. Anybody else? Yep, Dawn.
Sorry to ask another thing.
No, ask.
Well, I just have a question. When you just mentioned any questions, my husband and I are going away this week. And has anyone traveled with on the airlines with the wheelchair at all? Because we have not yet, but we are going to this trip because we're going to also bring his walker too. So I don't know if anyone's ever come across flying. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, when I drop the wheelchair at the gate, having someone probably help him get onto the airplane as well. Just if anyone has done that yet.
What kind of chair? Is it the
We
power
do-
chair or just a wheelchair?
We have actually this one we've got from CCALS. It's like it folds down. It's kind of looks like a stroller. It's excellent. So my husband, I've used it with getting it in and out of the car. So it is an electric one that can go. That's going to fold down.
Okay,
And
it's
then,
like the jazzy car.
yeah.
Okay.
That's yeah.
Okay.
So
Just make sure it's well tagged.
Okay.
When I went with my husband, it was I'm Martha, by the way. I
Okay.
work with Ron and everyone here. He had his power chair. Actually, it was a permobile, so there was no folding of this
Okay.
chair. And basically, we at the gate, they took the chair. It was well labeled, and they put that in the plane, and then they wheeled him down in a regular wheelchair. Where you have the jazzy, it's a possibility that he can be in the wheelchair all the way down to the airplane, and then they can take it right there at that door and put it into the airplane. Now, if he can't walk, they do have what they call an aisle chair, and they put my husband on the aisle chair, strapped him in, and then they lifted him up and brought him right in. We had an end seat because it's hard for them to put him in any other seat.
Right.
And I think it was in the first row, so it made it that much easier. And he was on the plane before anybody else. We waited, and he got off the plane after everybody else had left the plane, and then they brought his chair to him.
Okay.
So as long as you
yeah.
verbalize to the airline what's going on, this is what I have, this is what needs to be done, and
Okay.
I don't know if it depends on the airline. We went JetBlue, and it was quite smooth.
Oh yeah, we're flying JetBlue as well. That's what I was hoping he could drive it down or ride it all the way down to the plane, and then maybe, because I don't want him to walk from there into the plane because he's very wobbly right now. So I'll ask for an aisle chair. I didn't know what it was called, so that's good. And we definitely have an aisle seat too. we have the more room. So that sounds great. Thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
I would also recommend calling the airline ahead of time and telling them your situation.
We do have that
you have-
on our profile already. They do have that.
Yeah.
We have the, so that's what I was, so we do have that.
I think it's important to call ahead too and just ask them what their guidelines are. And then you can also go online and Google wheelchairs and airlines, and they'll give you the ratings of some of the airlines that are, the ones that are most compatible with flying. JetBlue's a great airline and you're already booked with them, so that's not really an issue, but you can find a lot of that information online. I just had a patient that flew from New York to Ireland, Aer Lingus, with a full permeable power chair. And we just had to do a lot of homework before and calling the airlines and telling them what the chair was and what kind of battery it had, make sure it was going to be wrapped, and make sure that they didn't mess up, the joystick and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And she got there no problem, but we made sure we called a bunch of times.
Right.
Just to let them know and gently remind them.
Yeah, no, and then we are flying to Mexico. So this is kind of our trial of flying, is that we're doing this because we were supposed to fly a while ago, but my husband fell. So some people know that on this call, but so we're trying this one out, and then next time we will be going to Mexico. So those are our two big things planned. So I will take care of all that. Plus we bought I did buy the bag for the wheelchair, so I don't know if that's going to make it easier or not easier for them. I have to see what they would prefer, like a bright orange, I guess a bag to help protect it, but I don't know, like just so they realize it's a wheelchair. So I'll have to call. But thanks for all that information.
Thank you all for being here, for taking the time again this afternoon. And Brenda, thank you so much for sharing these things. And I hope we can do this again, because I have a feeling that there's kind of deeper layers and layers of the question of caregiving, the technical aspect and strategic aspect, but then also what about when this happens or that happens? And so it's lovely to have you a part of the conversation. And thank you each one of you, CCALS staff, thank you so much for being here. And families will meet again for the caregiver group in February, the second Thursday in February. And maybe just in closing, to kind of, for each of us to respect how hard the ALS journey can be, and that there's nothing predictable about it. So when Irina was saying, he's got this and this, but when is it going to be, when is something else going to happen? And there's so much uncertainty, and you can't know what tomorrow brings. So to live today as fully as you can, and as safely and carefully, full of care as you can for yourself and your loved ones. It's awesome. Thank you, Brenda, so much.
Well, thank you everybody for having me today. And thanks my coworkers for supporting me on this. But if anybody has any, I hope I helped in some small way. If anybody has any questions at all, I think Brenda put my email out there. Please reach out if you need anything, or if you want to come to the retreat center.